guys, it's Kevin again, and this is going to be my review for Justified Season 5, Episode 5, Shot All to Hell. And, oh my god, guys, this episode was basically I'd like to call this the game changer of the season, because if you look at this season, it's been slow-paced, and that's one of the things that I don't like about Justified, is the beginning is always slow-paced. That's the only thing I don't like. And here is where we get to the tip of the iceberg of the show, where it starts to get really good, and so many storylines change, and definitely this also is kind of the beginning of the end. That's what, because the director or producer of the show, someone was being interviewed, he said episode 5 is really where everything changes, and really everything has changed in this episode, especially for Boyd, but also for Raylan. So let's just get to this amazing episode, because it was by far the best episode of the season, maybe one of my favorite episodes of Justified ever, because I was just really, really into this one. Loved every minute of it. It was so, so good. Of course, we're going to start with Raylan, then we'll go to Boyd, but let's go to them. Alright. So, basically we see Elias has found Al. He wanted to know what Al told the marshals. And Al, basically, he tried to pretend that Elias was confused, but both men knew he wasn't, and after a gun was pulled out, Al was ready to sing it if he had to. He told Elias everything. He mentioned Sammy and even Picker, and he thought if he was honest, then he wouldn't get hurt. But sadly, Al was wrong, because as soon as that happened, Elias just shot him the moment he no longer had use for him. So that was definitely really, really big. A lot of people died in this episode. Let me just say this, the body count in this episode was extremely high. There's usually not this many people that die, but the body count was really high. So, Wendy Crowe is taking Kendall to Miami. She wants her brother to live with her, and before she does, she had to run it by Allison. Their caseworker needs to give her final approval. Now, Allison has a very small appearance in this episode, which is fine, because I don't really know much about her character. I like her character. It seems they're not going to go the Lindsay direction. It seems they're going to have Allison be, a regular person. I don't think they're going to go the Lindsay direction, which I don't think they are. So Raylan showed up while Wendy and Kendall were still at Allison's office, and Raylan hates her brothers. He can't stand to watch her. Apparently the only good Crowe sit around and do nothing. He asked her for help, but didn't get it. He tried to manipulate Kendall's situation, and Wendy chose to get him out of Kentucky. He is true. He is right when he said that Wendy really is the only good Crowe, because if you think about it, Wendy is the one that's really not causing any problems. Even Kendall is causing problems, but Kendall's not as bad, but Wendy is the one that's not really doing anything that bad. Wendy's basically being forced to do things, and Raylan can see that. So then we see Art. He's following around Elias. He notices something very fishy about the other man, and yet was too late in actual catching him during a crime. All he does catch is Elias at surveillance. He saw Elias was studying the people inside of the diner. Mullen managed to scare off Elias by letting him know he was on to him, and once Art finishes up with him, he then moves on to the restaurant. And this is a really great scene, because we see Wynn Duffy and Picker, and one of the great things is that Wynn Duffy's just cracking all of these hilarious lines as Art's speaking. Definitely that was great. One of the things I love about Justified is its dark humor, how they can have humor into situations that don't really need humor. I like that a lot. However, Art didn't scare off Elias as much as he thought. The hired killer came into the restaurant after all, demanding to have a word with Picker. He was prepared to turn the whole diner into a bloodbath just to do so. Thankfully for the bystanders, the marshals in the area are known for a fast draw. No one can pull a gun faster than them, a fact Wynn made sure to pass on to Elias. The killer isn't dumb, though. He could have stayed and brazen it out when he chose to walk away, for the time being, that is. So, Picker wasn't ready to go anywhere, but he couldn't say no to Art after the man saved his life. In the meantime, though, we see Dewey. Dewey had a very small appearance in this episode. He's with a couple of prostitutes. He was feeling low and thought he could talk to these women about what's been troubling him. They, on the other hand, aren't used to real conversations. He tried to make jokes out of his nonsense, so he decided it was time to leave. prior to doing so, he wanted to leave them a reminder. He gave each of them sentimental gifts. They aren't worth much, and the girls weren't impressed at them. Honestly, this scene wasn't even that big. I just want to talk about it because Dewey did have something to do, but it was just Dewey being stupid. Dewey is just comic relief at this point, and I like that about his character. So Raylan wanted in Picker's questioning. He hasn't forgotten what that man did to him. He has not forgotten that. And his ex-wife, the Marshals, want Picker's help finding Marcos. They figured, seeing as he shot his former employer's son, that he is no longer loyal, yet Picker won't help them. It doesn't matter what his relationship with Marcos is, he knows better than to talk. So Raylan asked for a few minutes alone with him. He knows the room is monitored and lets that be the first thing Picker learned during their interrogation. But that wasn't the threat. He reminded Picker about some hard facts. Picker can easily blackmail Raylan with all he knows because Raylan has some terrible things, and he's capable of continuing to do those things. So then we see that the Crowe family, they're all back together. Daryl Jr. likes having his sister around. She can't help Ray and her brothers. That's why he made sure to drag her out of Florida. He wants his family around him without the responsibility. But when he tells him that he's going to have to change, and Raylan's looking to reinstate his probation just so he can't leave Kentucky, and their family needs to find a way to get Raylan to lay off as well, earn some extra cash. Kendall can't sleep on the couch forever. So then Raylan and Art, they follow Picker's directions to a warehouse. They were barely in when they got ambushed by Elias and his massive assault weapons. Here we get probably the first big fight scene of the season, because we haven't really had a huge shootout this season, but this episode we really had a big shootout here. You know, Elias is firing all these bullets at them, and it was only because Raylan found advantage that he was able to take out the hitmen. Otherwise, he and Art would have been caught up in a never-ending stream of bullets. And then Elias was in the warehouse protecting Theo. The dogs that came with the rest of their SWAT team was able to sniff out within moments. While the agents are celebrating their success, Kendall has gone back to a very dangerous life. His brother Danny is a psycho. No one else is willing to look out for him except for Jean. Now, Jean is the only person who really wants to care for Kendall, but so that way Danny doesn't have a target in his back. He kills Jean. So Danny didn't like outsiders, and he tells Kendall that if he does not tell anyone about, if he tells someone about this, he is next. He makes it extremely clear to him. And that was huge in my opinion. I did not expect that to happen at all. I thought that was great, though, because I didn't expect it. So then we see Picker. He's telling the agents that Agent Barkley was a federal agent out in the tarmac that night. But Raylan knows he's lying, and he tells Art it wasn't Barkley. You know, actually, it wasn't Picker who said this. David Vasquez was the one who said it. He told the agents that Agent Barkley was the federal agent of the tarmac. But then Raylan says it's not Barkley who was a federal agent. So who really was it? We don't really know. We know it was Picker, and he's going to tell Art, and it's definitely going to be interesting to see what happens here, because I thought there was a really big scene, and I didn't expect that at all. I thought that was really big, though, because, that's definitely really big. So that was Raylan's plot. I thought Raylan's plot was really good, but Boyd's plot was the best part of this episode. It was so intense, and I was so into his plot. It was so good, and we're really getting, like, a dark Walter White type of Boyd. So we see Boyd. He's killed somebody, before he did so, he made sure to drag his victim's name and reputation through the mud. He did so because not only did he want to kill Paxton, but was completely to destroy him. As Paxton wakes in his bed after getting a call from Nick, an anonymous tip was called in about one of his businesses. Nick, of course, found a bunch of corpses stashed at the funeral home. They were all tagged to be burned. Now he's under investigation for dealing with local gangs. Then that moment that Paxton knew that Nick turned against him, he had hung up disgusted with his former ally and found someone was waiting silently for him, and it was Boyd. Boyd wanted to see Lee's reaction, and then when he was done terrifying him, he shot Lee, straight gunshot to the head, and that is how the episode started, and I was like, yes, this is awesome. I love this Dark Boyd. I really love the Dark Boyd. I think it's awesome to see it, and that's one of the best parts of the episode, because it gets more intense from here. Because then he goes to his favorite bar of his, where he had happened to meet Daryl Crowe. Now, they're all talking shit about him at this point. Daryl Crowe, they're all saying really bad shit about Boyd. They're saying, oh, he's a terrible person and everything. And Boyd hears all this, and they don't know that it's Boyd that's actually in the bar. And I love the way Boyd did this. They ask who he is. He says, my name is Boyd Crowder. He points the gun at them, and one where his family won the better hand was done to try and make a deal with Boyd, and then, gun to the face means no deal. He hadn't expected rejection. He even admitted out loud he never thought Boyd would turn him down. So, of course, Boyd said no. He's working on much bigger and profitable plans as all his little fingers in the heroin trade doesn't appear to faze him. So Boyd is on to something. And then we get another huge scene from Boyd. Every scene with Boyd in this episode was really, really intense. Because he then goes to Nick and Mrs. Paxton for their services. That money that should have gone to the missus ended up going to the man's family for services rendered. And Boyd says, hang on for a second, I'm going to go to the bathroom, hang on. He goes to the bathroom, but then once he comes back, there's this man who comes in, and he's there to kill Nick, and he kills Nick. So I was very surprised that he killed Nick, because, Nick was the one who actually, Boyd, was helping Boyd kill Paxton. So I was very surprised that Nick just died like that, but that's how Boyd chose to wrap up his loose ends. He then tells the missus that it would be best if she left town. So Boyd is now, he's turning into a serial killer, I gotta say. Even though he's not killing people, he's starting to turn into like this very dark serial killer Boyd, and I love that about himself. I really like that about Boyd. I think that's amazing. The biggest twist of this episode, though, has to do with Ava. By far, that's the biggest twist of the episode. I did not expect this to happen at all. Because we see Boyd, he's going to talk to Ava, and Ava says, oh, I'm going to be out of here in a day, tomorrow, so just come back tomorrow, and I'll be back. But as soon as this happens, though, we see her prison guard, the same guy who tried to rape her last week. We see him again. And he's basically looking for revenge, because what he does is he's made them think that Ava has put a knife under her bed, which she didn't, and he takes out the knife, he stabs himself, and then he says, Ava just shanked me. And they all think that Ava was the one who did it, and as a result, Ava is taken to the state penitentiary. But the real thing is that they don't know that it was actually the prison guard who stabbed himself. So when Boyd finds out about this, he is beyond furious. He's so upset, which he should be, because that was his, that was not there at all. But he does not know what actually happened. All he knows is that Ava was transferred to the state penitentiary. That's all he knows. And it's very interesting to see where this goes. And I was wondering where this would go, and then we see where it goes. Because then we see these two guys. They're there. They made a deal against Johnny, and they say they're working for Boyd, but all of his dreams appear to be falling apart. And Johnny was smart enough to make contingency plans of his own. So, and then the last scene we see is Boyd. He comes into the prison. He's looking for, Ava, and he's beyond furious. He's saying, where's my fiance? Give me my fiance. Where is she? And he's freaking out, and that's the last thing we see of Boyd. So, this episode was so intense. I loved everything in this episode. I loved Raylan's plot. I loved Boyd's plot. I loved especially Boyd's plot. Boyd is getting so dark, and I love that about his character. Also, it looks like, Raylan's going to turn Picker in. That's what it looks like is going to happen. And I also was very surprised at how many people died in this episode. Let's see, Paxton died, Nick died, and Jean died all in the same episode. So it was a huge episode. Those three characters are now dead. It's going to be very interesting to see, what happens to all those characters, because those three characters are now dead. And I did not expect this to happen at all. What do you think is going to happen with the Crowe storyline as well? I like where that's going. Do you think Kendall will confess to Danny killing Jean? I don't think Kendall is going to make it out of this at this point, especially from that scene. I think it's kind of foreshadowing that Kendall will be killed off in the finale. I do kind of think that, especially because of how violent Danny is. Do you like this violent Boyd? I love this violent Boyd. I think it's amazing to see, because we briefly got it in the first episode of the season, and now we're really starting to get it. Were you surprised that he killed Paxton? I knew he would do it eventually, but I didn't think it'd be this early. I was very surprised that he did that. Were you surprised that he killed? I think the most surprising part is Ava. Is he gonna find out what the officer did shoot Ava. Is he going to find out the truth about that? I think he will. But that's it for my review. I hope you enjoyed it. Again, amazing episode. Loved every minute of it. And I'll see you guys in the next video. Okay, bye.